The left uses the threat of violence and goes and kidnaps people and locks them in boxes. There's nothing else to it. The idea that it's a legal theory, I think, is just a bit too sympathetic to what they're doing. No. When they tell cops to go to someone's house and lock them in a box, and the cops go, "You got it," and don't care, and there's no law behind it, it's effectively just gang warfare.
What?
Donald Trump didn't break any laws. Donald Trump didn't abuse or assault anybody. He didn't defraud any businesses. New York just ordered men with guns to go and drag them into a box.
But what's the argument that they made? That's my question more specifically. Like, what was their argument?
Yeah, well, they start with the rhetoric. They frame it as fake electors, right? This is fake. This is a false certification. But like Tim was saying earlier, no, this is what they did in Hawaii in 1960. This is what they did in, I forget, like 1870s. The disputed
76
that ended Reconstruction 76.
Yep.
I mean, like this is all the way through American history. And
it's how you have to do it. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But we have an American history deficit here, and that's the thing with malicious prosecution. You bring a case that does, like all these Trump cases are fake, right? They don't actually have a legal basis underneath them. But just the machinery of dragging somebody into court, going through that, not only wears them down psychologically and financially, but also gives some credence to the fake allegation in the first place that you're abiding by this process. So
this is why I gave the example of Ticketmaster. If you and I are a single purchaser of tickets, and Ticketmaster is a company, Ticketmaster does not care at all what our dispute is between us over who owes whose money. That makes no sense to them. So when Georgia, for instance, has Democrat and Republican electors, the Democrats win the election, the governor certifies them, sends them to the federal government. The Republicans then say, whoa, we're in a dispute here. The federal government says, don't care. If you don't submit your paperwork by the 14th, you did not submit your paperwork. There's no coordination and negotiation between two separate legal jurisdictions. So what happens is the Republicans say, okay, fill out the paperwork and submit it. Then if the judge rules in our favor, we inform the government that the actual certification will be the Republicans, not the Democrats. That's what they did in Hawaii in 1960. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you can do it. If the Republicans do not submit the paperwork, then when the court rules, actually the Republicans win, the federal government says, too bad, you didn't submit your paperwork by the deadline, so you didn't submit your paperwork. So when the Republicans do submit the paperwork, pending adjudication, the Democrats in the state then order police officers to go and, with the threat of force and violence against these people, arrest them.
And the paperwork was to say, hold up?
Like the paperwork
was filing saying Michigan delegates go for Trump.
But they're supposed to do that, but then state attorneys went and arrested them for doing what they were supposed to do?
Right, because the idea is that, so here's what happened. So you had electors. So let's just pick a state. I don't know what the states are, but let's just pick a state like Pennsylvania. So I don't think they did an alternate electors there, but let's say Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania was called for Biden. Trump says, and this is hypothetical, Trump says, let's do a recount, right? So as the recount request is going through the courts, the Trump campaign says, if we get a recount and we are successful and it turns out we won, we're going to need to tell the Electoral College that Pennsylvania goes for Trump. So we're going to need to have electors to say, hey, Electoral College, we're the electors. We go for Trump. Pennsylvania goes for Trump. So essentially what happened was there were two sets of electors, one for Biden, one for Trump. And whichever candidate was declared the winner of Pennsylvania after this hypothetical recount, those electors would have said, it's us, it's our candidate.
The governor certified the Democrats. Mm-hmm. The Republicans submit the paperwork because they were in active lawsuits.
Yes.
If the judges said, wow, the Democrats actually didn't win, they would then inform the federal government that this state is hereby certifying the Republican and disqualifying the Democrat.
Because they would still have to get it in by the deadline.
If the Republicans don't submit the electors by the deadline, which I think was December 14th or 16th or something like this, then the federal government says, you didn't submit your paperwork. So we already got our electors. This is exactly what happened in 1960. Both sets were submitted. The judge ruled the Democrat actually won, not the Republicans. And so Nixon, as VP, decided without certification, he would just choose to count the votes for JFK instead.
And so this happened in a state. There were two sets of electors decided, and the police or the law went after one of the electors.
It's happening right now in a bunch of states. They're arresting lawyers too.
Arizona, Michigan, and it also leads into what happened on J6, because that was the constitutionally ordained process to basically sort through these alternate slates of electors. That's a process where when there is dissent, that they break into the bicameral houses and actually have, I think it was like 2 hours of debate. So they were set to be basically arguing about the election, presenting to and fro basically for the next 18 hours or something that day. But for the intrusion into the Capitol that shut that whole process down, we might have seen a different result in the election. So that begs the question of who had the motive to shut that down, and that's really the important the elemental aspect of the Fedsurrection that transpired that day. And to the credit of Darren Beatty there at Revolver News, that's really broken a lot of this. But it's come into the consciousness that why was there such an impetus to shut down the events that were going on in Congress then?
So they potentially, conspiratorially, incited their own thing, so they didn't have to go through the votes.
And even more than exactly. I think the reporting came out this week that the pipe bombs, the supposed pipe bombs that were placed at the DNC and the RNC were ultimate fallbacks for also disrupting the process.
You can pull that word.
Yeah. So there was a good reason. A lot of people had a lot of interest in stopping the process that day, and it was not MAGA.
What happened though after that happened, after the intrusion into the Capitol? Then did they just declare a martial law across the country and give authority the opportunity to go arrest random electors against?
No, each
the law?
attorney general did it themselves.
There's no authority to do it. There's zero authority to do it. There's zero authority to have arrested Trump in any one of these cases. Zero authority. It is crazy world. Donald Trump was arrested without due process. He was charged for a crime that lists in the charging documents, quote, another crime. There's literally no crime by which Trump was charged for. And then they convicted him for nothing in New York. So this literally means that police officers and the government, under threat of force against Trump, said, come here or else. And when Trump goes there, it's the guys in uniform with guns that are illegally holding him there. They should all be in prison. And I hope and I pray that each and every one of them goes to prison. I hope Donald Trump is the psycho dictator that Democrats claim he's going to be. And as soon as he's president, he says, each and every one of these law enforcement officers that arrested the electors and lawyers, you will be indicted on criminal charges for violations of constitutional rights, which is a crime at the federal level. And we will send FPS, we will send law enforcement to your homes and drag you out in front of your children to watch, because you are the scumbags burning this country down.
It was against constitutional law, but was it okay with the state law?
There is no law allowing them to do this. None. They are making it up. Donald Trump's charging documents and the 34 counts say, quote, another crime. There's nothing listed.
They never listed the other crime.
Well, particularly the electors.
So the electors, the attorney generals.
What are they saying? Fraud and obstruction or something?
They say fraud. They say, forging documents and stuff like that. They've made up a whole bunch of charges.
That was at the very end when the judge, I believe, was giving the jury instructions. He kind of gave this smorgasbord.
You mean in the New York
case? Yeah.
In
New York case.
Impersonating political public officials, racketeering, forgery, state crimes, fraudulent effort to reverse election results.
It's all fake. These are so you vote for an elector. These are electoral slates. These are people running to be the elector of the state. They are candidates. They are nominees, whatever. When the votes come in, the governor certifies which slate will be sent to cast their votes. And then the votes are cast, sometime in December. Then the votes are sent to Congress to count. The vice president comes in and counts them. And the only thing that should have happened is that Pence should have said, I'm going to count the ones that were certified by the governors. And in my opinion, if the state legislatures filed a dispute and send a letter to the VP saying we are in dispute and we reject the certification by the governor, then the VP has no choice but to say, I can't count either of these because there's a dispute between the branches of the state. But in this regard, let's just say Mike Pence says, we're going to count the certified electors. I'm not going to be involved in whatever else is going on. End of story. All he has then is paperwork filed administratively that means nothing, and then you ignore it. But
which was the appropriate thing to do.
They arrested Trump's lawyers. There is no authority. There is none. And I will stress this again. We can look at racketeering, fraud, whatever garbled nonsense.
Impersonation.
That's
of
ridiculous.
A public official, but they
Nonsense.
are public officials. They're not.
Well, they're running to be the electors, and they're saying, I hereby swear that I am the elector for the Republican. We will be voting for Trump. And it's all because we're waiting for a judge to issue a ruling. And all you have to do in that capacity is just say, no, look, the judge ruled against you, so these are now disqualified. These are void, but thank you for filing. That's it. That's all that happened. That's all that happened. Why did they arrest Trump's lawyers? And in Wisconsin, I think they arrested 2 of them. In Georgia, they arrested several. Jenna Ellis, I'm not a fan of hers. Why was she criminally charged under RICO in these cases?
Not Wisconsin. Real quick, it says here that it's only in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, and Nevada.
No. Trump's lawyers were recently charged.
I'm sorry, talking about the electors.
I'm saying they charged Trump's lawyers.
Yeah. Oh shit.
When they start arresting Trump's lawyers for literally providing constitutionally protected legal service, you are well outside the realm of any kind of legal jurisdiction or authority. And I will stress this again, when it came to the 34 counts in Stormy Daniels' case, they said falsification of business records, quote, another crime. When the jury was given instructions, the judge said, you don't need to be unanimous on what another crime means, which is unconstitutional, unquestionably. Now they're saying that they're going to sentence Trump to prison on the 18th of September. The theory is that they're going to stay his imprisonment on bail pending appeal, but that way they will say Donald Trump is a convicted felon sentenced to prison. And it's fake charges. It's completely fake. There is zero authority. And why aren't we seeing any red states doing the same thing? If the Democrats make up fake authorities and use non-existent statute to charge Trump, where is anyone else to do it to Kamala right now?
Probably hoping that we reverse course rather than jump on the bandwagon. But I think the tactic would be with Trump, it's too much of a hot button issue, emotionally, too much of a hot button issue to try and reverse that right now, although it might get reversed.
Reverse what?
Reverse course of trying to imprison him for these 34 false counts. But with the electors that were doing their duty and then they got hit with false impersonation of a government official when that was their purpose was to be that alternate slate.
Just like Hawaii did in 1960.
Yes, sir.
That should be overturned. That should be at least investigated and potentially overturned.
Bro, you're asking people who are beating you mercilessly to play fair.
Well, I'm asking the entire world to take a look at it and make a decision.
What's the entire world going to do? Invade the United States?
No, just listen and make noise about it and explain it.
Well, here, with New York coming up, this is the electors, that's a great injustice that is going to have to get rectified. And we need to provide them the resources to defend themselves right now and talk out against it. And state attorney generals have to intervene, as well as any other interest party. But the RNC obviously should indemnify these folks because many of them actually were campaign workers. These are 70-year-old grandmas and stuff. It's outrageous. But with the 18th and the sentencing, that's the quintessence of election interference. The very fact that you're having a sentencing hearing and basically making the vote for president a referendum on whether or not Donald Trump goes to prison is quintessential election
and what's
interference.
crazy about it,
And to basically get in front of that, we need to go into New York state law and to the higher circuit courts and get a writ of prohibition against the trial court for doing that.
It's not going to happen.
Well,
the Supreme Court and the federal government is going to have to intervene as their purpose is. When the state goes rogue, Bailey is suing New York for interference. Supreme Court, I imagine, will do nothing. But the issue is actually right before our eyes. Donald Trump has been falsely sued. on sexual assault claims, which are nonsensical from 30 years
Eugene
ago.
Carroll one. It's
And they passed a law that allowed her to reopen up statute of limitations so she could do it. It makes no sense. The story makes no sense. They claimed business fraud, even though the people he defrauded said he never defrauded us. He gave us full disclosure. Said, too bad, we're going to say he did anyway.
and they're charging him $367 million.
Yep, and he's had to pay $100 million. Now, then they criminally charge him for, quote, another crime. This is insanity.
And it was quarterbacked by the Biden DOJ and the White House.
Who quit his job in the DOJ to go work for a local prosecutor's office.
It's the number 3 in the Biden DOJ who left his job to go and do this suit.
He took one of the biggest demotions we've ever seen in the legal system. It's staring you in the face. The Democrats win. You get an installed Kamala Harris no one voted for. Maybe they vote for her in the general. She has no campaign positions. The Democrats in New York are using made up fake charges and fake law that doesn't exist to try and arrest their political rival. And what are the Republicans doing?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Arguing. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.